Suburban neighborhoods are supposed to be safe, trimmed lawns, quiet streets, and friendly neighbors. But what if the person running your HOA wasn't just strict? She was dangerous. This is the story of the afternoon my 18-year-old daughter was tied to an oak tree, and 2 minutes later, Blackhawk helicopters landed in our cul-de-sac. That afternoon changed everything. My daughter, just 18, on the edge of adulthood, dangled from the old oak tree in our front yard. Her wrists were bound with coarse rope. A glaring violation notice fluttered on her shirt like a scarlet letter. And beneath her, basking in the chaos, stood HOA Karen. Clipboard gripped like a queen's scepter, mirrored sunglasses flashing the horror of our neighbors back at them. "This is community justice," she announced, as if she were judge and executioner rolled into one. Around her, people lined the sidewalks, phones out, mouths half open, unsure if they were witnessing reality or some bizarre performance. My entire body locked, coiled, ready to tear that rope apart with my bare hands. Then the air itself began to tremble. A deep, rhythmic thumping rolled over the neighborhood, rotor blades slicing the sky. 2 minutes later, Blackhawk helicopters dropped into Maple Crest like a scene from an action movie. But before I tell you what happened next, comment below where you're watching from and what time it is. Maple Crest looked perfect on paper, the kind of suburb you'd see in a glossy real estate brochure. Trimmed hedges, manicured lawns, pastel houses lined up like obedient soldiers. Driveways pressure-washed to a sparkle. Mailboxes painted in a uniform, approved shade of beige. It was marketed as suburban paradise. But anyone who actually lived there knew the truth. Maple Crest wasn't a friendly neighborhood. It was an empire, and its self-appointed ruler was one woman, Karen Whitmore, the HOA president, the queen. Karen didn't just enforce the rules. She invented them. Red ink, bold print, waved around like scripture. Her clipboard wasn't a tool. It was a weapon. She could make the most rule-abiding homeowner feel like a criminal. Park overnight on the street? Fine. A lawn gnome or holiday lights left up a day too long? Fine. Even thinking about bending the rules felt dangerous. She thrived on fear. Fines multiplying like weeds, intimidation and gossip cementing her power. When my wife and I moved in, I thought she was just an overzealous property values crusader. But over time, it became clear this wasn't passion. This was addiction, and addiction to control. I could stomach it. I'd seen bullies in pastel cardigans before. But my daughter? She was built differently. Fiery, intolerant of hypocrisy. She refused to bow her head or keep quiet when injustice strutted across our lawn. The first spark? Our mailbox. Karen marched up one summer afternoon, sunglasses flashing, clipboard in hand. She tapped our mailbox with a manicured nail. "Non-compliant," she announced. I blinked. It was the same beige mailbox every other house had. "Too glossy," she sniffed. "The bylaws require a matte finish. Gloss reflects sunlight, a driving hazard." I almost laughed. A mailbox? Distracting drivers? But before I could respond, my daughter stepped out on the porch, arms crossed. "You're worried a mailbox is going to blind someone?" she said, voice carrying across the cul-de-sac. "What is this, the Las Vegas Strip?" Karen's lips thinned. She hated being mocked, especially by an 18-year-old who wouldn't flinch. From that day on, Karen had a target. Not me, not my wife, my daughter. Soon the petty wars escalated. Violation slips taped to our door. Unapproved outdoor storage because my daughter leaned her bike against the garage. Graffiti because she drew flowers in chalk on the sidewalk, each fine sharper than the last. But my daughter doubled down. She sketched caricatures of Karen, giant sunglasses, oversized clipboard, and left them for neighbors to see. People laughed. Some gave her thumbs up. Karen's carefully crafted image cracked. She didn't want compliance. She wanted reverence. The more my daughter turned her into the neighborhood's inside joke, the darker Karen's smile became. Soon she was writing community service threats on official HOA paper, as if she were running her own mini-dictatorship. My daughter read the notices aloud, ripped them up, laughed. I should have known then Karen wouldn't stop. She'd built her entire identity on absolute power. And to her, my daughter's defiance wasn't just rebellion. It was treason. Neighbors began to notice too. Some looked delighted at the defiance. Others terrified even to be seen near our house. I tried to warn my daughter, told her to back off. But she'd grin and say, "Dad, you don't beat bullies by hiding. You beat them by showing you're not afraid." Looking back, it was never about mailboxes or chalk drawings. It was about Karen's throne. And my daughter had dared to kick at the crown. Karen wasn't planning on fines anymore. She was planning something much darker. If you've never seen a suburban HOA president in full meltdown mode, picture a high school drama queen mixed with a traffic cop wrapped inside a wannabe dictator. That was Karen the day she finally went after my daughter in public. Started again with chalk. Saturday morning, my daughter drew wildflowers and hearts across the sidewalk. Neighbors smiled, snapped photos. For a moment, Maple Crest felt alive. Then Karen appeared. Clipboard under one arm, latte in the other, sunglasses perched like a crown. She stopped over the drawings as though she'd stumbled onto a crime scene. "What is this defacement doing on community property?" she sneered. "It's chalk," my daughter said calmly. "It'll wash off." Karen jabbed her clipboard. "Graffiti. Violation of HOA bylaws. Section 12, paragraph 6. The crowd grew. Tension spiked. Watching Karen blow up had become a spectator sport. My daughter stood, brushed chalk off her jeans, stared Karen down. "Vandalism? It's a sunflower. Touch some grass." Laughter rippled through the street. Even old Mr. Thompson nearly choked on his lemonade. Karen's face went crimson. "You will apologize right now," she hissed, "or I'll escalate this to the board." My daughter leaned forward, cupped her hands like a megaphone and shouted, "Ladies and gentlemen, we've just learned chalk flowers are a federal crime. According to our neighborhood queen." Phones out, cameras clicking. The sidewalk erupted in laughter. In that instant, Karen lost what she prized most: control. She stormed off, heels clicking, but spat one last promise over her shoulder. "You'll regret this." It should have ended there, a petty feud destined to be washed away by rain. But with Karen, nothing ended quietly. The next morning, we woke up to a bright orange notice on our door. Mandatory compliance hearing. Our offenses: unauthorized use of community property and disrespect of HOA authority. Disrespect of HOA authority. Maple Crest wasn't just a neighborhood anymore. It was a monarchy. And Karen had crowned herself judge, jury, and executioner. I wanted to crumple the notice, toss it. But my daughter waved it like a trophy. "She's scared," she said. "That's why she's lashing out." We couldn't let her win. Deep down, I knew this wasn't cooling off, it was only heating up. When an HOA president drunk on power collides with an 18-year-old who refuses to bow, you don't get compromise. You get combustion. And sure enough, the following week, it exploded in front of the entire neighborhood. It was one of those postcard-perfect afternoons. Sunshine, iced tea on porches, sprinklers ticking across manicured lawns. My daughter sat on the sidewalk with a pack of local kids, chalk in hand, sketching a dragon that stretched half a block. They were laughing, drawing, filling the gray concrete with color. Then Karen arrived like a thundercloud rolling over the cul-de-sac. Not alone this time. Two of her so-called HOA security volunteers trailed her, matching polos, clipboards tucked under their arms like they were bouncers at a middle school dance. Her voice tore through the laughter. "This stops now. You are hereby ordered to cease all unauthorized activity on community property." My daughter froze, chalk still dragging a half-finished wing across the pavement. She tilted her head and smirked. "Or what? You'll fine me?" "News flash, Karen, I don't even pay the dues. My parents do." It hit like a slap. The kids giggled. A ripple of laughter rose from the porches. Karen's face trembled, crimson creeping up her neck. "You insolent child," she spat. "You think this is funny? You think mocking me will end well for you? You need to learn respect." Suddenly, it wasn't about chalk anymore. Her voice cracked with something colder: vengeance. I saw it in her eyes. This wasn't a tantrum. This was a plan. I stepped forward, hand on my daughter's shoulder. "Come inside," I whispered, but Karen jabbed a finger at us, trembling with fury. "You'll pay for this humiliation, both of you. Don't think for 1 second I won't make an example of your family." The crowd gasped. Neighbors glanced at each other, unsure whether they just heard a threat or a sentence. My daughter didn't blink. "Go ahead. Try me," she said. Time stopped. The cul-de-sac felt like a theater stage and every house an audience. Karen's face twisted into pure venom. I knew then, this wouldn't end with fines or notices. It had turned personal. There are moments in life you replay again and again, hoping you imagine them. For me, it was the evening I pulled into the driveway and saw my daughter tied to the oak tree we planted when she was 5. The sun hung low, casting gold over the street. Neighbors crowded the sidewalks, whispering, filming, frozen. Thick rope cut into her wrists, arms bound above her head, sneakers dangling inches from the grass. She was flushed but defiant, eyes locked on the woman beneath her. Karen stood there as if she were officiating a parade, clipboard under one arm, sunglasses glinting, smile fixed like a trophy. "What the hell is this?" I roared, slamming my car door so hard it echoed down the block. Karen turned, calm as a judge. "This is community discipline," she announced for everyone to hear. "Your daughter has vandalized property, mocked authority, and disrupted neighborhood harmony. Per bylaw section 15, subsection 2, I am enforcing a public corrective measure." "You tied my daughter to a tree," I shouted. "Symbolism matters," she said coolly. "Disobedience must be rooted out." A ripple of gasps, nervous laughter, and horrified stares swept through the crowd. Parents pulled their kids back. Someone whispered, "This is insane," but no one dared say it louder. I surged forward, but the 2 HOA security men blocked me, arms crossed. Karen snapped, "Touch her and you'll be charged with interfering in a disciplinary action. Grounds for fines, and possibly expulsion." Expulsion, like we were peasants to be banished from her castle. My daughter, hanging like a modern Joan of Arc, locked eyes with me. She wasn't crying. She was daring Karen to blink. "Dad, don't. She wants you to lose it. Don't give her the satisfaction." Karen smirked. "Listen to your child. She knows her place now." Phones lifted higher. In Maple Crest, gossip was currency, and this was the gold standard. But behind the cameras, I saw fear. Fear of Karen. Fear of being next. "You're out of your mind," I said, fists trembling. "Untie her right now or what?" Karen cut in, tilting her head like a vulture. "You'll call the police? Go ahead. Officer Daniels already knows. This is an internal HOA matter. And if you touch me," she gestured to the cameras, "the whole neighborhood will watch you assault the HOA president. How do you think that plays out?" The arrogance was staggering. She turned cruelty into theater. My daughter spat back, voice steady. "You're pathetic. You think this makes you powerful? You're just a bitter old woman hiding behind a clipboard." The crowd murmured. Karen's mask slipped, just for a heartbeat. Then she smiled, slow and venomous. "You'll learn," she said. "By the end of today, you'll both learn." I stepped forward, ready to rip the rope apart, my blood roaring in my ears. And then I heard it, faint at first, then swelling. A low, rhythmic thump. Whump, whump, whump. I froze. My daughter heard it too, her eyes flicked skyward. Karen, too absorbed in her performance, didn't notice. The crowd shifted, murmurs rising. Helicopters. Karen crossed her arms, mistaking the tension for her own authority. "She hangs there until I decide she's learned her lesson," she said smugly. But the sound grew louder. The oak's branches rattled. Dust whipped across the street. Children screamed. Finally Karen looked up, her smirk cracking. 3 dark silhouettes tore across the horizon. Blackhawk helicopters, blades roaring, dropping lower with each second. The neighborhood erupted. People shrieked. Lawn chairs toppled. A grill tipped over, sending hot dogs rolling down the sidewalk. A decorative gnome went airborne, shattering on the pavement. Karen stumbled backward, clutching her clipboard like a shield. She tried to shout, but the roar drowned her out. And my daughter, still tied, still defiant, smiled, because she knew exactly what was happening. The helicopters weren't lost. They weren't passing through. They were coming for her. Most of our neighbors had no idea who she really was. To them, she was just the rebellious kid with chalk. But under the sarcasm and stubborn streak was a secret. Months earlier, she'd been selected for a classified federal program. Cadet, tactical training, survival drills, an emergency beacon hidden under her jacket strap. When Karen tied her to that tree, the device transmitted a signal. Now 3 Blackhawks thundered over Maple Crest like angels of wrath. Phones dropped. Parents grabbed their kids. Dust and leaves swirled as the first helicopter swooped low. In the middle of it all stood Karen, jaw slack, sunglasses askew, frozen as her kingdom crumbled. She thought she was putting on a show. She had no idea what kind of power she'd just challenged. The helicopters circled once, shadows sweeping over the rooftops like dark wings. Then one dropped lower, landing skids whipping up a hurricane of dust. The side door slid open with a metallic crash. Ropes uncoiled, soldiers in full tactical gear sliding down like thunderbolts. Chaos, and yet inside the chaos, perfect precision. The first soldier hit the pavement, sprinted to my daughter, and with one swift cut freed her wrists. He lowered her gently to the grass while 2 more soldiers formed a tight perimeter, weapons angled low but ready, a silent warning to the crowd. Stay back. It looked like a scene torn from an action movie, except this time it was our street. And the star wasn't Karen. It was my daughter. She rubbed her wrists, wincing, then glanced at me and grinned. Told you she couldn't win, Dad. Karen stumbled forward through the dust, coughing, voice screeching above the rotor thunder. This is outrageous. This is private property. This is a community matter. A soldier pivoted toward her, visor gleaming. He barked into his radio. Moments later, a second Blackhawk tilted into descent, rotor wash flattening flower beds, snapping flags from their poles. Karen's protests dissolved into raw noise. For the first time, the queen of Maple Crest was being drowned out by something she couldn't control, real authority. Neighbors were stunned. Some filmed, some hid, some just stared as fear melted into awe into realization. The clipboard no longer ruled here. I stepped forward, voice raised over the hurricane of dust. You think my daughter's just a kid with chalk and a smart mouth? She's more than that. She's a cadet in training for the United States military. When Karen tied her to that tree, she didn't just humiliate a teenager. She triggered a federal emergency response. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen's face went pale. Federal response? She croaked. That's ridiculous. This is HOA jurisdiction. Before she could finish, a soldier stepped forward, handing me a folder stamped with a federal insignia. Sir, he said, voice crisp over the rotor wash. Per federal mandate, your daughter is under our protection. Her safety is a matter of national security. I opened the folder, flashed the seal just enough for the neighbors to see. Signed, sealed, official. No amount of bluster could undo it. Karen staggered back, clutching her clipboard like a life raft. No, this is fake. You can't just. But her voice broke as soldiers closed in around my daughter, escorting her through the stunned crowd like a dignitary under guard. The same neighbors who once ducked under Karen's reign now parted like the Red Sea. Phones held high, recording every second. The balance of power had flipped. My daughter brushed the dust from her jacket and, with deadly calm, said to Karen, "Next time you think about tying someone up, make sure they're not trained to call in backup." The neighbors chuckled nervously. Karen's lips trembled. No words came out. Her power was gone, and in Maple Crest, public humiliation was a death sentence for a reputation built on fear. She tried one last time, voice cracking. This is a violation of community bylaws. I'll file a complaint. I'll fine you all." But the roar of the second helicopter landing swallowed her threats. Soldiers poured out, boots slamming against the pavement with a force no clipboard could rival. If you've never heard a Blackhawk touch down in a cul-de-sac, it's like an earthquake mixed with a hurricane. Trimmed hedges flatten, flags whip away, and pastel lawns turn to dust bowls. Our cookie-cutter paradise was now a combat zone. Karen clutched her clipboard, screaming about trespassing, HOA approval, bylaws. A rotor gust hit her hard enough to knock off her sunglasses and send them skittering across the asphalt. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Years of intimidation evaporated in seconds. The lead soldier, visor reflecting chaos, stepped to me. "Sir, your daughter is secure." We received her distress beacon and responded accordingly. Karen lunged between us, waving her clipboard like a badge. "I am the HOA president and I demand an explanation." "Step back." The soldier cut her off, voice like steel. Karen blinked. No one had ever told her to step back before. "Do you have any idea who I am?" she tried. "Yes," the soldier said flatly. "You're the civilian who unlawfully restrained a federal cadet." Gasps erupted. Neighbors stared at her as though seeing her for the first time. Karen sputtered. "Cadet? She's just a kid. She draws on sidewalks." The soldier didn't even look at her. "Your actions triggered a federal emergency. You will remain here until further notice." Karen's face twisted with disbelief. "You can't do this. I'm in charge here. This is my community." But nobody was listening. Soldiers set up a command post on a neighbor's lawn. Another directed traffic. Blackhawks thundered overhead, making it clear Maple Crest was no longer under Karen's control. I'll admit, part of me felt vindicated. Watching Karen's pastel tyranny collapse under rotor wash was more satisfying than I'd imagined. But another part of me was stunned by the sheer weight of real power descending on our quiet street. My daughter stood tall beside the soldiers, wrists sore but eyes bright, chin lifted. She wasn't humiliated. She was stronger than ever. Karen, desperate for attention, turned to the crowd. "Neighbors, this is government overreach. They're staging this to humiliate me." But instead of nodding, the neighbors laughed. One man even shouted, "About time someone shut you up, Karen." Her reign dissolved in the dust of helicopter blades. Years of fines and fear gone in an instant. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. A soldier handed me a sealed envelope. "Sir, official notice. Your family will be under temporary federal protection until the investigation concludes." I stared at the bold insignia. My hands shook. Not from fear, but from the surreal weight of the moment. My quiet cul-de-sac had turned into the set of a Tom Clancy thriller. Karen lunged again, voice cracking. "You have no jurisdiction here. I'll sue every one of you." The nearest soldier raised a hand. "Ma'am, you're being placed under observation. Do not interfere further." And for the first time in her life, Karen fell silent. The crowd didn't cheer loudly, just a rolling wave of relieved chuckles and murmurs. They were finally realizing what we had always known. Karen was just a person, a petty, clipboard-wielding bully who mistook fear for respect. And when real power landed from the sky, she had nothing. As the helicopters roared overhead and dust settled across Maple Crest, I knew one thing for certain. The Queen had been dethroned, and her fall wasn't over yet. Power looks enormous when you're standing under it, but when it's stripped away, you see how flimsy it always was. Karen wasn't the queen of Maple Crest anymore. She was just a woman clutching a clipboard, flanked by two soldiers while her neighbors whispered, filmed, and laughed. One soldier spoke into his headset. Subject contained. Awaiting transport. Not Madam President. Not Karen. Just subject. Karen swung her clipboard like a weapon. You and your father conspired to humiliate me." My daughter folded her arms. "You tied me to a tree. You humiliated yourself." The cul-de-sac erupted with murmurs, even laughter. Mr. Thompson muttered, "Best HOA meeting I've ever seen." Karen spun for backup, scanning for a single loyal face. None. Board members who once nodded along were suddenly busy. Mrs. Riley stared at her phone. Paul, the vice president, mumbled something about dinner and disappeared into his house. Her empire crumbled one cowardly retreat at a time. I stepped forward, years of fines and threats rolling off my shoulders. You know what, Karen? I thought you were just petty. But today you crossed a line. And look around. Nobody's afraid of you anymore. You think this changes anything? She sneered, her voice cracking. They'll crawl back when I'm reinstated. No, we won't, a neighbor shouted. We're done with you, Karen, yelled another. You don't run this place anymore. It spread like wildfire, people who'd been silent for years finally speaking. Complaints, laughter, pent-up grievances poured out like a dam breaking. Karen shrieked, Quiet, all of you. You can't talk to me like this. I'm your president. But the soldiers were already guiding her away. The louder she shouted, the smaller she became. My daughter leaned close. She's finished. She was right. A soldier handed me a document. Official charges. Unlawful restraint, assault, interference with federal property. Not HOA citations. Real crimes. When the accusations were read aloud, Karen's knees almost buckled. This is outrageous. I am the law here, she screamed. The soldier's calm reply cut like steel. No, ma'am. You're under arrest. Gasped. Then clapping, first one person, then a wave across the cul-de-sac. Karen thrashed, shrieking, You'll regret this. This neighborhood will rot without me. Good, someone shouted back. Better than rotting under you, another added. I laughed, loud, raw, cathartic. Laughter rolled down the street, drowning out Karen's last threats as she was led to the waiting vehicle. The Queen was now a punchline. And the real downfall wasn't just the arrest. It was the moment everyone stopped fearing her. As the Blackhawks lifted off, Maple Crest looked like a war zone. Lawns torn up, flower beds flattened, dust on every car. Yet no one cared. For the first time in years, the air felt light. My daughter smirked. Guess she won't be handing out violation slips anymore. Guess not, I said. Karen screamed one last time from the transport. This isn't over. But we all knew it was. For her, it was the end. For Maple Crest, it was a beginning. The HOA board tried an emergency meeting the next day. Half resigned outright. The other half scrambled to claim ignorance. Nobody bought it. Within a week, the board dissolved under federal oversight. A new community vote was scheduled. Neighbors who'd once hidden were suddenly eager to participate, to build something real. And at the center of it all was my daughter. Overnight, she became a legend. Clips of her tied to the oak tree and the helicopters landing racked up millions of views. People commented, She's tougher than my entire HOA combined. She rolled her eyes, but I could see the pride beneath. Karen, meanwhile, faced the opposite fate. Her lawyers tried to call it symbolic discipline. The judge laughed. She was indicted, her name plastered across headlines. The HOA crown she clung to became a national punchline. And Maple Crest felt like a neighborhood again. Kids drew on sidewalks without fines. Families hung decorations without measuring. Trash cans stayed out an extra day just because they could. It wasn't perfect, but it was free. For me, the change was simple but profound. I could sit on my porch at sunset without Karen's shadow across my lawn. I could laugh with neighbors instead of whispering. And every time I looked at that oak tree, I didn't see humiliation anymore. I saw resilience, the day my daughter proved bullies always fall when someone stands tall. Because in the end, Karen didn't lose to helicopters or soldiers. She lost because she mistook silence for submission. She thought fear was respect. But once fear is gone, so are you. Looking back, the story of Karen isn't just about one unhinged HOA president. It's about the danger of unchecked power anywhere. Give someone a clipboard and a title, and you'll see who they really are. Bullies, whether in schools, offices, or suburban streets, all make the same mistake. Believing fear equals loyalty. They never see the moment when people stop being afraid. That's the lesson my daughter taught me. Courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's standing tall with rope burns on your wrists and daring to smile anyway. So, if you're watching this, ask yourself, who's the Karen in your life? And more importantly, When will you stop letting them control the story? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your experiences. And if you enjoyed the story, hit subscribe. Because in this neighborhood, the drama never really ends.